used correctly, do give a roadmap. And so I would just ask a question: how many of you people would be interested in where Nifty is going to go in the month of December? So see, basically there are just 4 or 5 hands, and the rest of the psyche of the people is investing community. They're not bothered where Nifty is going and where the stocks can go. Well, here is my view on Nifty. See, if you care to see the current formation in Nifty on a monthly chart, now I'm talking a monthly chart, you see that Nifty currently is forming what we call a monthly doji. A doji being the open of the month and the closing of the month. The month is still to close, but more or less we are around about there. So entire month, what has Nifty done? It's opened at a particular level. At current closing, as of yesterday, it is still at that very level. It's gone nowhere, then done up and down, up and down. The past history of having a doji in the month of October and November, if we care to see, fall back into 2010, 2013 again. So these last quarterly dojis, when you get in October, November, the market tends to have a turbulence. It kind of indicates that here the sellers are matching up the buyers. The doji is basically opening of the month and trade closing of the month is the same. Therefore, the sellers have kind of matched up the buyers, and therefore the indexes remained at the same level. It kind of what we call like Sanjay, like my friend Sanjay Bakshi told about pattern recognition. So there is a pattern, and which I call fractal in technical language, is that if you have a doji in October, November, generally there is a fall in the market in the subsequent 2 to 3 months. And if I have applied some technical tools, people who out of you follow technical tools, if you apply regression trend channels and Andrew Pitchforks, and if you care to see on a monthly chart, you will see that more or less on the long term, the long targets of Nifty have more or less been done. Always Nifty, and as any euphoric bull market does, it will try and overshoot that. And in the overshoot, you can have a rapid rally of something like about 10% even. Having used certain charts, the target that I'm arriving at for Feb mid is 11,434. This is the precision of the technical that is able to give almost the exact target. On CNBC, I had talked about 10,272 at that point, and that's exactly the level we hit a little while back. So we used a simple technical tool which we call Fibonacci extensions in combination with Andrew Pitchfork, which gave the target. It has very well been achieved. And now using the same tools and seeing further down the road, what's coming here. So this is a level of, and applying certain time studies. So mid-February is the level of 11,434. That's where I would like to get out of the market, try and look for shorting this market. My outlook for 2018 is at some point during 2018, you will see that UP gap, the Yogi G gap, what we call, getting filled up. So at some point during 2018, you can have a revisit of 9,000 to 8,964, which was the test of the breakout. So you can go there, retest that breakout, and initiate the next part of the bull run. So that's my outlook for the coming year and the coming 3-4 months. Getting into sectors, and I would, if I were to say put my money where my mouth is, I would try and get into IT on a heavy basis. I would be long on IT stocks because my outlook on USD NIR is that sometime 2019 or 2020, USD NR is forming at the current formation on the charts, again applying the same fractals that I saw in 2010. I was doing a seminar and I was heading ATM in North India at that point, and we had invited some very esteemed guests. And I saw the USD/NR chart. We were doing 44 at that point on USD/NR. I said, okay, the chart is showing me that USD/NR is going to 65, 66. Everybody in the seminar laughed. They all laughed. 3-4 months later, all of them were crying because it had a parabolic move. We had that spurt to 69, which came all of a sudden. A similar formation on USD/NR is again forming. And this time the target that I see on the charts is something like 82 on the USD/NR going into 2020, 2020. What do you, 22, 21. So what do you see, CNXID? You see kind of a rounding formation after the decline. A rounding formation is the basing formation, and it is kind of approaching what we call a 61.8% retracement level. And if you guys are following technicals, you will know how golden the ratio is that. And considering and combining it with the view of the USD/NR that I have, most of the tech stocks in the coming, if you have a holding, and this is I'm talking to investors, addressing the investors, not the traders. If you have the capacity to hold for 2 years, then most of these IT firm-like stocks can give you 100% returns from them. So that is broadly my outlook on Nifty. Do I see the bull run ending in 2018? No. I do see a correction, which I've already spoken about. I've given you a level from where I expect the correction. I've given you a level where I expect the correction to end. And the next bull run that I foresee after that, subject to that 8964 not breaking and holding and reviving, the next bull run gives a target of 12,800 something. So that is a huge bull market again. So starting, suppose this correction or retracement, which is very common in the bull market, you have from 11,400 to approximately 9, about 1,400 points kind of a retracement, which is not unusual. And the next bull run from there kind of gives you something like 3,500 points, another 30% kind of rally. You would have, owing to the USD/NR getting into a bullish this time, you would have the heroes of this bull run starting to lag. You could have the pattern being passed on to other sectors like IT and sectors which are going to benefit from USD/NR spike. So that pharma, pharma is kind of hovering around at 38.2% retracement on a monthly channel. Subject to it holding, that can also be participating. But however, there are regulatory and fundamental reasons for pharma, because we are heading into election of 2019, and Modi ji being what he wants, that the poor shouldn't be having medicines at higher prices. So there are price controls put in place on pharma. The pharma sector may or may not perform. So I'm not so bullish. I'm pretty sure on the IT thing. For the investors, I'd say get into IT and get off your banks. The coming 2-3 months, get out of your portfolios, raise your cash levels. You will probably get this.
This 11,434 is February, so next 1 or 2 months you said it's down. December and Jan is down, or only December?
I'm not an astrologer, so I cannot pinpoint exact. This is my estimated mistake.
You said next 2 months should be down.
No, next 2 months I am not saying it should be down. Going into February, I am bullish.
Yeah, but you said doji, monthly doji, then
monthly doji is kind of indicating, it's obvious that the next part of the bull run is kind of a bull trap. It usually is. So you can have a rapid 10% pre-budget kind of rally or something like that. And then some reason or some excuse might get created. It's already showing on the technical charts that you could have a retracement and sometime in 2018. And the markets being very technical in nature, and once the top is done, the targets are visible, the algos that are trading for the institutional guys, they kind of rush towards the targets. So what correction used to be like 6-month, 8-month, 10-month periods could simply be a 3 to 4 month correction, but a correction of something like about 1,400 points is kind of vicious. On the index, it can really butcher a lot of stocks. that broadly is my total index. And,
which sector is looking the worst?
the heroes of the current, because if USD and INR does spike, so what do you get? The heroes start becoming zeros. See, every bull run has a different sector that it takes over. And value also, as an investor, where do you see value? You see value in IT currently. Rest of the things are grossly overvalued, even in valuation terms, even in terms of what investors would like to call it.
How long do you see this continuing, the bull run continuing from like 2010 level?
I think the 12,800 target that I have, 12,840 something, I more or less get a timeline of something like March to April 2019. So you could, when the next election in 2019, you could be coinciding with another major target on Nifty after this retracement is once played out. So that's my product.
Sir, algo, you are talking about the algo trading. Yes, sir.
Algo trading, see what happens is, market is technical in nature. How do you otherwise explain that more than the price, it says exactly at the same time that all the institution buyers press the buy button, and how does a bottom get created? How does every bit of smart money know that this is the exact time and the exact second that you have to press the buy? If you see the bottoms getting formed, even in the panic of September 2008, when the markets crashed to 2 something, if people who were trading on that particular day, if you notice that market came down to 2250, and from within 2250 had an intraday rally of 10%. So who can buy at the precise bottom? It's only the algo-driven high-frequency machines, where already the buy orders are already placed that this is the level, this is the time, automatic millions of buy orders are triggered at the same point. For a retail buyer to capture that first 10% that it did on that very day, I did manage to capture Reliance and a few other stocks. We made intraday 10% in there, and we hopped off, not realizing that we had caught the bottom. But that came in hindsight.
So it's dangerous for the investor, retail.
See, for a retail investor, you will eventually, nobody will be able to capture the bottom. You will eventually slip 2-3%, that's okay. As long as the market is going to go up maybe 13%, even if you have slipped the first 2-3, who cares? It's still going to give you a lot.
Sir, I wanted to ask, you said it's forming the doji on the monthly chart of Nifty.
I can't see you. Where?
Yeah, here, sir.
Oh yeah. Oh, okay, yeah.
Sir, so it is our market is on RSI level is also overbought.
Well, that you should ask the investors. For me, as a trader, I don't care if the market is at 2,000 or maybe it's 20,050. For me, I just bother about my next day, whether I want to go on the short. So I don't care about what levels are there. For me, overbought, underbought, oversold is just a term.
So you just referred that it is forming the evening star on the monthly chart.
It is not making an evening star. It is making a doji.
Doji can be translated as evening star if next month it
Well,
doesn't open high of that doji.
Let's see the close of the market. It is still. So formation currently is the proper doji. Something similar if you go back to 2010 and something 2013 and maybe even 2007, before the tops got formed, you will see a similar kind of formation. A doji being that a sellers are kind of matching up the buyers. Therefore, the index has not been able to, it opened at a certain level. It has closed the month at a certain level. It's like the plane is at 40,000 feet in the air and it stalls there. What is going to happen? Because the height is so much. Gravity will do its job.
Yes.
Similar.
Sir, this side, left. This is Ashish, sir, on your left.
Right.
So, about like you mentioned about the IT. So, textile is also export oriented primarily.
That's what I exactly said. So anything which is going to benefit from exports should be your bets.
Sir, 82 you are saying dollar it is in how many years?
2020, 2021. It's just a matter of time. The formation is too similar to what we had in July and August 2010. And the kind of takeoff when the dollar does, it really runs. It's parallel. So I do remember that seminar when I said it's going to hit 65 and people laughed, but they cried after 3 months. Then I got a large number of calls. Anything else?
So you use advanced rate?
Yeah, but it's not necessary for you to use advanced rate. I mean, the same tools can be available on the free software like investing also. So try your Andrew Fog, try your Fibonacci's, try your not only the Fibonacci retracements, use the Fibonacci extensions as well. Now that's where you can get into a bit of forecasting. When we had the last seminar in Mumbai and the market was around about 8,900, how did I arrive at the level of 210 to 72? If you see that interview, it's still there somewhere. How did I arrive at that? So a certain Fibonacci extension had been crossed. The logical movement of the market is once it's crossed a particular level, it will aim at the next. What after the next? There's another one. And we use a confirmatory tool like Andrew Fog and see the median where it's coinciding. So you get more or less of idea of how was ISO shown in May, in April, that end of the year, somewhere around Diwali will be at 10,270, because there was a convergence of the price and the target showing up at that particular month. So it's a similar forecasting that I'm doing is like Feb mid, March, April is something where you can look for a correction. So in the coming rally, and you will get a good one in going into the budget. Try and be lightening up your portfolios, don't get sucked. You are going to get
And sir, is the pharma sector really bad, or it will take 2-3 years?
See, pharma sector, considering that USD is going to go up, I would tend to be bullish. And is it doing any base formation? It seems to be. Because the moves in the pharma stocks are random. They are random. And they are making those 10% random moves. So either there is very smart accumulation going on, and therefore they are not tracking further, or people are trying to hold on to a key technical level. If you apply a monthly chart, you see it's done from the top of 38.2% retracement level. If this were to break, then the next 50% retracement level kind of triggers, which kind of gives it another 1400 points fall on the index. So either the smart money or the holders of this particular sector or the owners of these particular stocks are somehow trying to hold that technical level so it doesn't breach, otherwise it creates a stop loss for them, leads to another 1400 point fall in the index. A 1400 point fall on 94 rupee index would be something like 8,000, where stocks can get hammered by 20-25%. The reason I'm not so bullish on pharma is because the government interfering and telling the doctors, don't prescribe particular medicines, give generics, give the salt names. So you're kind of creating a disincentive and regulating the prices and not allowing a free market pricing. So that could have an overhang. However, there is a plus side to the pharma sector, that being the generics that we make in India. I'll give you an example. I have a customer in US, and somebody in the family had hepatitis C, and there's a medicine by the name of Sofovir or something like that. A bottle there in the United States costs $1,000. So each tablet, a daily tablet, costs $100 to take. The same generic made by some of the best companies, including Dr. Reddy, Torrent Pharma, and all that, the whole bottle costs just $100. So the price differential is kind of 1,000%. So how can you say the generic markets in India is not going? Because there is a constant demand of these cheap medicines, which are as efficient in eradicating the disease. The viral loads that people got done after having these consumed, because I followed up with that buyer. So it cured the thing. So it was as effective as the medicine that could have been bought for grinding $1,000. And not everybody has the insurance covering them for $1,000. There.
Hello. Thank you for so elaborate.
So the generics part is something that is still something that can keep the pharma sector alive and kicking, provided this technical reach of 94, 95, 600 or something like that on the CNX pharma is not reached.
Hello.
Thank you.
I have a more very basic question for my better understanding of technicals. I have seen that whenever there is a gap of opening, 5%, 10% of the stock or an index, and especially stocks, they invariably come down to fill that gap. So I have two questions. Is it true for the way up also, like whenever there's a gap down, does it come up also to fill that gap?
Yes.
And what percentage of the time does this actually happen, right, on your experience?
Well,
It doesn't always, but
almost 85 to 90%.
both ways.
Well, yeah. So both ways. Some of you may or may not recollect, but we have gaps in Nifty at the levels of 925 and 935. Are those gaps going to be filled at some point? I can't say that. So that is a huge massacre if that were at any time point were to happen. So there are certain unfilled gaps, and they will remain so maybe. And God forbid that anything contrary to that happens.
Thanks.